some roots. Today I'm going to show you how I make kombucha. So generally I do a continuous brew, which means I just keep adding tea to my already made kombucha, and I leave the SCOBY in there and I just keep doing it. But I'm going to show you how I would do it if I just received a new SCOBY in the mail or from a friend, and how that would work. So I'm going to get started. So this right here is my continuous brew vessel. This is a gallon of black tea made with 1 gallon of water, 1 cup of sugar, and 8 tea bags. It's best to use black tea or green tea or both. You can combine the two, but don't use herbal teas that have different types of herbs in them, because the oils in the herbs can actually cause your tea to go rancid. So my first step for me is to take a SCOBY out of my continuous brew and add it to this jar. I sanitize with my Star San, which is a food safe sanitizer, and I remove my top SCOBY from the top and I push it aside, and I get one of my older SCOBYs out and I remove that. And it's okay if it tears, it's okay if I don't get all of it. You can actually cut these in half. That's what I'm going to do because this one's being difficult. And I just put that in with clean hands. So I'm not touching anything to contaminate it. Alright, so 1 SCOBY, whether it's complete or not, is not that important, especially with the strength of my SCOBY. I'm actually going to put 2 in there because that one broke in half as I was removing it. And just because I know I have somebody who's wanting a SCOBY, I'm going to go ahead and put that in there now so that in a couple of days I can just pull that out and give it to them. Then I sanitize my funnel and my ladle, and I am going to ladle out approximately 1 cup of the finished kombucha brew. I'm pretty sure that 3 scoops of this will be at least a cup. So you don't want to have less than a cup. If you're doing a gallon brew, you need at least a cup of starter liquid. I've had some people that have come to me and got SCOBYs and starter, and they were like, oh, the last time I got a SCOBY, it didn't have any liquid in it. Maybe that's why it didn't work and I had to start over. Yes. The liquid is actually more important than the SCOBY almost. This right here is a bottle of kombucha vinegar from the last time just before I added the sweet tea to my continuous brew. It was really sour, so I poured off a quart to use as vinegar. And you can see, you see that? There's a SCOBY floating in there. It fell down from the bottom when I used the vinegar. So yes, just having really good starter fluid is very important. It will grow its own SCOBY if you leave it out long enough. Okay, then I take my gallon of sweet tea. It's just 1 cup of sugar per gallon, and you just make your tea like you make however you make your tea. I'm using this pitcher because I have an iced tea maker that I got on clearance years ago, and so it's very important that it is not hot. You don't put hot tea on active culture. So you add your gallon of tea to your container, and that's it. You just leave it alone. Make sure I don't have any sugar granules at the bottom. I stirred them in pretty good. So I have a little extra tea left in my pitcher, which works out nicely for me and Rowan because we really like sweet tea, but we typically don't make it for our own consumption because that's too much sugar in our diet. So we only have tea when we go to friends' houses or if we go out to eat. It is best to use organic tea if you can, and organic sugar. I'm very particular about organic sugar because I don't want GMO sugar in my kombucha. But when it comes to the tea, I'm not that particular. I actually very often will buy the generic tea. As long as it's 100% natural tea, it's gonna work just fine. But if you can afford organic tea, definitely do that. It'll be so much better. And that's it. I am just gonna let it sit and brew for a couple of days. I'm gonna cover it with a paper towel so that no fruit flies can get in it, but it does have to have air exchange, so you can't put a solid lid on the top. Although, if you have a kombucha SCOBY from me, you probably could get away with that because as you saw, it was growing in my vinegar jar. So that's because I have a really strong strain. So that's it. I'm just gonna put a lid on it, which is made of paper towel, and a rubber band, and wait. Sometimes it's fast time for it to brew. If it's really warm in the house, it'll brew faster. If it's really cold in the house, it'll brew slower. So what you're gonna look for in your tea is taste test is something you can do. But if you start to see a skin forming on the top layer of the tea, real thin skin, then you know it's starting to brew. A new SCOBY will form on the top. So as it brews, that SCOBY will start to form on top, and it starts out real thin and it'll eventually get thick. If you leave it in there and you don't disturb it, it'll get really thick, but the tea will also get more sour. As it eats the sugar, it produces acetic acid, so it makes it sour and less sweet because it's eating the sugar. I usually recommend that you do a taste test if you haven't brewed in your house under your conditions before, to know how fast it brews. Once you see that skin forming, it's a good time to do a taste test. If it's super sweet still, you can let it go longer. If it's already sour, you know the next brew you do, you should cut back on the time. But 7 days is typical. Sometimes it takes 2 weeks. Sometimes it takes 3 days in the summer. So that's it. I hope y'all enjoy, and hopefully you guys can make some kombucha yourselves. There it is, all ready to brew, and I'm just gonna leave it alone and let it brew. And in a couple of days, we'll have some kombucha ready to go. And there's so many health benefits to kombucha. It is a really great probiotic. It is a colony of yeast and bacteria that are all beneficial to your digestive health. So it's really good for you. Sometimes when you first start taking it, you can kind of actually go through a detox if you've never drank it before, and where your body is releasing all of the bad stuff that it's had in your system. So sometimes when you start out, you should start out with small amounts so that you don't end up getting, spending too much time in the bathroom, basically. But if you do start drinking kombucha and you are spending time in the bathroom, know that it's probably a good thing because it's cleaning your system out. All of the bad stuff is being removed from your system because of all the good stuff replacing it. So it's a good thing. So I'm excited. I got 2 batches of kombucha going now, and we're going to start doing some second ferments where we add some fruit or fruit juice and flavor it that way. So that's really yummy as well. Thank you for watching Wholesome Roots.